Welcome back to the 2024 Candidates Forum and for the August 6th primary election. Now we're going to take a look at the race for Camden County Sheriff. We're joined by Chris Edgar, Greg Sellers, Brian Butts, Phil Cannon, Jimmy Brashears, and Jeff Beecham. We've got 5 questions. We'll be ready to go. We're going to start with a 2-minute opening. And Phil, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Tony. My name is Phil Cannon, candidate for Camden County Sheriff. I moved here in 1989. I've got 35 years in public service to Camden County between fire service and law enforcement. Bill Walker touched on something in the candidates race for commission. Climax Springs seems to be left out, and Edwards on the northwest side of the county. In December of 23, I went to a fire board meeting and secured an office in Climax Springs to extend service to the northwest side of the county, as well as into the north end of Max Creek. My intentions are to put the deputies back out in the county where they belong, patrolling the county roads rather than the highways and byways in the cities of the county. They're welcome to help people when they need to, but the county sheriff is that's where they belong, is out in the county. I'm advocating for an inpatient addiction treatment center, also a teen driver improvement program, which I'll touch on later. But my name is Phil Cannon. Again, I'd appreciate your vote August 6th.
Greg Sellers, 2-minute opening.
I'm Greg Sellers. I'm a candidate for Camden County Sheriff. I've been a lifelong resident of Camden County, lived here all my life, live on a farm, a century farm, and I've got over 21 years of law enforcement experience. I started out with the Camden County Sheriff's Department in 1989, left in 2009. I've run a couple of small businesses, a gas station and grocery store, currently have an auction business, and run a small cattle farm right now. Again, in 21 and 22, or actually 22 and 23, I became the police chief of Richland, and got back into law enforcement at that time with the intentions of running for sheriff. I have a lot of leadership skills. I'm not afraid to make a decision. I believe I'll make a good sheriff, and again, I'd appreciate your vote on August 6th.
Jimmy Brashears, 2-minute opening.
My name is Jimmy Brashear. I'm married to my wife Valerie for 38 years. I have 2 daughters who are graduates of Camden, and I have 3 grandchildren when I'm currently in school in Camden. I've started my career in 1989, and I've worked for 35 years in law enforcement. 30 years with the Camden County Sheriff's Office, and I worked in all aspects of the Sheriff's Office. Ran the Corrections Division for 8 years, and currently the Chief Deputy of Camden County for 8 years. Through my career, I've worked basically every division and moved up through the ranks from corporal to patrol sergeant, all the way up to the rank of Chief Deputy. And I've always tried to do the best I can, and always try to strive myself to go to that next level, and that's why I'm running for sheriff. I'm probably the only experienced one in this forum that's ran in the sheriff's office in all those divisions. It's always been full-time. I haven't been a reserve for 20 years or anything like that. Dedicated my whole life to law enforcement, and I appreciate your vote August 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, 2-minute opening.
Hello, I'm Chris Edgar. First, I'd like to thank you guys all for coming and also airing this on TV. Thank you, KRMS. Quick little bit about me. I'm married. I have 2 wonderful children. My son, whom's in law enforcement now, and my daughter, she's 16, and we also have a beautiful grandchild. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know having anything could be better than having children until we had our grandchild, and he's been such a blessing. But so I have nearly 20 years in law enforcement, from every aspect that you could imagine. So I started out in law enforcement as patrol, but before I started in law enforcement, I think this is what makes me unique and different, is I come from a business background. So the prior last 3 jobs that I had, I ran 3 very large corporations. One of them was a Fortune 500 company. I would come in and fix their budgets and fix the company and make sure they're getting on the right path. So I wanted to be a servant. In my heart, I'm a servant. So my wife and I sat down, and I told her I wanted to go into law enforcement, and we knew it was going to be a huge adjustment, and my amazing wife agreed that it would be fine, and we went into law enforcement and made a huge adjustment to our family. But it's been a blessing since we've done that. So hopefully I'll have more time to get to tell you a little bit more about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Beecham, 2 minutes.
My name's Jeff Beecham, and I'm a candidate for the Camden County Sheriff's. I started my career over 35 years ago in law enforcement. I've been a resident of Camden County for in excess of 40 years. I'm married. My wife and we have 5 children that have blessed us with 7 grandchildren, and now we have the 8th one on the way. We're looking forward for that in February. As I said, I have over 35 years in law enforcement. In 1988, I started my career with the Lynn Creek Police Department, and for a short period of time, I was a patrolman there, and until I accepted a position with the Camden Police Department in 1989. I started as patrol, and for several years, I worked at Patrol Division. I went in 1996. I received my first promotion to a sergeant. I was a supervisor over the Patrol Division. In 2011, I received my second promotion to lieutenant, the second in command of the police department, and that's where my administrative skills and training all came into play. I was in 2020, I was appointed the chief of police in Camden, where I currently hold that position.
Brian Butts, 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Brian Butts. I'm, surprise, surprise, running for Camden County Sheriff. I am here because I love this county. I have deep roots in this county. I'm currently raising 5th generation Camden County residents. I grew up a lake rat. My dad grew up a lake rat, and my kids are lake rats. And everything I have, including my kids, is because I grew up here. So I truly want the best for this county, for this community, for everyone that visits here, that lives here, and it's the best place in the world, and you guys deserve it, plain and simply. I am here because I actually feel like I have the most well-rounded experience of any of the candidates. I've managed a budget 5 times that of the sheriff's office. I've managed employees 5 times as many as the sheriff's office. I've worked in the jail. I've worked on the road. I've worked as an investigator. I've trained literally some of the most high-level warriors in the world, those who protect this country. I have actually spent time in the military. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and for those who have actually been members of the U.S. military, it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been a part of it, but that is a huge part of who I've become, my character, my attention to detail, and just my overall ability to lead.
All right, we'll move on to the questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. We're going to start down here again with Phil. Phil Cannon, Camden County and the entire lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how will you address it?
Luke, I would say burglary and theft are probably one of the main things, as well as drug usage in Camden County. Putting our deputies back out in the county on proactive patrol is my first and foremost objective in trying to curb some of that. Again, an inpatient addiction treatment center to work on the drug part of the thing, and also mental health wellness.
Greg Sellers, Camden County and the entire Lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how will you address it?
Well, we're starting to see big city crime here at the lake. Fentanyl usage is a big thing that's coming to every area, especially here. I've certainly got a background in narcotics enforcement. That's what I spent most of my career doing. Also, domestic violence is probably the number one call that the Sheriff's Department takes now. Also, I know it's very little talked about, but the human trafficking down here at the lake is certainly a problem, and it's something you just don't hear much about, but it's here.
Jimmy Brashear, Camden County and the entire Lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how will you address it?
I think our biggest ones is the drugs. The fentanyl is a big issue, and child sex crimes. I see a larger crime rate of that. One of the biggest things is to train our officers and dedicate certain officers for drug enforcement. I've sent our investigators. We probably have the best investigators in the surrounding area, and I think in the state, that works our child crimes and sex crimes and things like that. And I think that to benefit that, I think it'd be better to have some of our patrol officers more trained in those areas too, and to help offset that.
Chris Edgar, Camden County and the entire Lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how will you address it?
So, one of our big problems, which is, of course, drugs, fentanyl is a large problem. And if you look at drugs also tied to a lot of other crimes, so not only is it just drugs, but then you have your stealing cases, your burglaries. Most all of the cases fall back onto the drugs. The way you fix that is you have an effective narcotics unit that's going to go out and help curb that, and also community awareness, getting involved with the community, talking with the kids, getting in front of the kids, talking about what's going on, what drugs are, explaining that to them. So maybe if they do see the drugs, maybe that could help curb their idea of ever getting peer pressured or trying those drugs. But training is a huge importance. I'm an instructor for Missouri State University. I train police officers all across the state from all aspects of law enforcement, and investigations is a huge one. Thank you.
Jeff Beecham, Camden County and the entire Lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how would you address it?
Well, the biggest crime that I'm seeing right now coming through Camden County is your family-related crimes, whether it's domestic violence or whether it's child abuse crimes that's coming through. We have the advocacy groups that are reaching out for law enforcement to assist them in these things, and they have all kinds of programs that we've been working with them on, and that's what we need to continue to do. Another big problem we have is the drugs, and we need to have a very aggressive drug task force that will go out and seek out these violators, and we need to place them into jail.
Brian Butts, Camden County and the entire Lake area has experienced tremendous growth. What crimes are on the rise as a result, and how would you address it?
I'm going to kind of sound like a broken record here, but everyone else hit it already. Drug usage is on the rise, and the scary part is the types of drugs. But this isn't your homegrown marijuana anymore. Fentanyl is scary, and we're starting to see an increase in that and other opioids. sex crimes are on the rise. Domestics are on the rise. Trafficking he's right. It is a very large problem in this area that most people don't realize. And we need to combat those things head on. We need to bring back a street crimes unit that sole focus is the residents of Camden County and not rely on any LNIG-type groups or statewide task forces, but actually bring it in-house. And their priority will be investigating drug trafficking, drug dealers, drug distributors, and drug manufacturers, as well as the trafficking crimes and dang it, out of time. A minute is not very long. You thought the lawyers were bad.
You know, in March of this year, the jobs report came out, and in the state of Missouri, 159,000 jobs go unfulfilled. If you're elected, what specific things will you do to hire new employees and retain those currently on staff? We're going to start with Greg Sellers.
Well, I think that's a problem that all law enforcement agencies have across the state and the nation as far as that goes. They've got to see a department that the people are happy to work at. They've got to see a department that the staff, the sheriff, the undersheriff has their back, isn't afraid to make decisions, and just a good, firm place to stay. You've got to have a place that has a future for them, meaning a pay scale needs to be implemented so they can see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's the way you attract people to come to work for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, 159,000, many of those in law enforcement. If you're elected sheriff, what will you do to hire new employees and retain those currently on staff?
For the sheriff's office right now, we have pretty much a full staff. The only positions we have available is the ones we just implemented with our sales tax we had a few years ago. We still got maybe 6 of those to fill up. I think the standards for law enforcement is very important. We kind of raise those standards. It makes it more difficult to find police officers to work for us. But we go around to the different academies and talk to the students and talk to their instructors and see which one's the best ones for us. We also started doing psych exams to kind of weed out the bad ones. But I think quality is better than quantity at this point.
Thank you. Chris Edgar, if elected, what specific things will you do to hire new employees and retain those currently on staff?
So first and foremost, you have to have the correct leadership, and you have to look at the people. You have to take care of the people. If an employee doesn't feel like their needs are being met, they're not going to be happy. You need to listen to your employees and make sure you're making the best decisions, utilizing their information. Also, like I've said in the past election, we need a wage scale. Our deputies right now are looking at what they're making now is what they're going to be making in 10 years. That blows me away. If I'm working at somewhere, I want to know. I want to be able to see what my raises are going to be and see where I'm going to be for a retirement. And I think that would be a huge start in recruiting and retention of new employees.
Jeff Beecham, if you're elected sheriff, what will you do to hire new employees, and what will you do to retain the current ones?
Well, what you need to place together a recruitment program so that you can recruit the best people to come to work for you, and then you need to have your retention plan. Your retention plan will assist you with your recruiting plan. At the Camden Police Department, we really don't have a retention problem. Our newest officer is actually been on for about 3 months, but that was an additional position. That was not one that already existed. And none of us have our door, people knocking down our doors. But if we have people within the department that are happy to be there, and when they spread the word around, and that's where you're going to get your people coming and knocking on your door. And that's what I plan on doing is building a culture within the department so that we have people knocking down our door to come to work for us.
Brian Butts, specific things you will do to hire new employees and retain those currently on staff.
A minute is definitely not long enough for this answer, but I will try.
the best.
Basically, you make it someplace where people want to come to work and make it someplace where people want to continue to work. One of the biggest issues facing law enforcement just in general right now is the fear of legal prosecution for doing their job and doing the right thing, and it is happening. You include prepaid legal services as part of a salary package. You also, I intend to institute physical fitness standards, realistic ones, of course. I mean, I'm not going to be able to go out and do the same thing as a 20-year-old, but and also include a way for them to get there in their salary package, gym membership, little stuff like that that shows you care about them goes a long way. And, quite simply, you institute a matrix for promotions so that people actually take tests. There's not a corporal test there. There's not a sergeant test or a lieutenant's test. That needs to change. So those promotions are based on merit instead of what it is now.
Thank you, sir. 159,000 unfilled jobs, many in law enforcement. Phil Cannon, if you're elected sheriff, how will you fill those positions and how will you retain those currently on staff?
But Tony, adding perks to the job for the employees that are there and future employees is very important, as well as dedicated leadership that's going to prove to the folks that we've got their back, that we're going to take care of them, both in their job and legally. Implementing a pay scale, kind of like a broken record. Everybody else has already said there's not one in place. I've been there now back this time 8 years, and still, other than the pay raises, there's not been any promotions for me. So, the basic deputy's pay rate stays the same. So there's got to be a stair step. Also, promoting people for their abilities, not who they're friends with, is another big thing as far as getting things taken care of like that and keeping the folks happy.
Thank you.
All right, next question with a 1-minute response. We'll start with Jimmy Brashear. What steps would you take to ensure the ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the residents of Camden County?
I think with technology that we have today with our body cams and our car cams, I think the ethics of the officers, the way he presents himself to the citizens is a lot better. It protects the citizens by their actions. It also protects the officer from what complaints are made up against them. Sometimes we investigate those crimes through the body cameras, and we see that the officer did wrong, and we adjust that, and we discipline for that reasons. And then other times when there's complaints on the officers, we are able to clear those officers from any allegations. Okay, I'm done.
Chris Edgar, what steps would you take to ensure ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the residents of Camden County?
So first and foremost, within the Sheriff's Office, the way you start, you implement policies. There's policies should be laid out for everyone, for all the employees. Is how I'm really going to separate myself is one of my platforms is my job is to serve. You guys are who I would be working for as your sheriff. You're my employer. So I will implement an advisory board that I will sit down with communities from all over the area, and we will go over issues, and you guys can hold my feet to the fire. We could work together. We could problem solve. I could hear your problems, and then vice versa, you guys could hear mine. And that's the way we're going to get problems fixed, is if the community and the Sheriff's Office is working together as one. That will solve majority of the problems. Thank you.
Jeff Beecham, what steps would you take to ensure ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the residents of Camden County?
Well, it all starts at the top. You've got to have your leadership that will promote, good ethics, and then you have to have the training. As far as policies and procedures. You have to be fair, but you need to be firm. And if they violate the policies, then you need to be firm on it and consistent with your discipline. So that's how you correct problems. You take care of the little problems so that they don't become big problems for you. As far as the transparency, personnel issues are something that just can't be released out to the public. But if it is an issue that that can be released, I have no problems releasing any of the information that we have that doesn't jeopardize anybody's privacy as far as the personnel records or whether it jeopardizes a case.
Brian Butts, what steps would you take to ensure ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the citizens of Camden County?
Quite simply, you create policy requiring ethical conduct. And here's the kicker: you actually enforce that policy. You don't overlook one thing because somebody did it, or throw somebody under the bus, or use scapegoats. You actually you stand up and require it of your people, and they're going to know that. They're going to realize that you have their back, so they're going to have yours. As far as transparency, it's ridiculous in today's day and age that any institution, whether it be public or private, doesn't have a presence on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok if it stays around, and you get in front of issues. That's the biggest thing. You don't wait for someone else to post it on Facebook and then address it. If you have an issue, you get it out there and you take care of it with the public.
Phil Cannon, what steps would you take to ensure ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the residents of Camden County?
Keeping our body cams and all that equipment up to date and making sure that they all work before deputies go on shift is very important. That way you've got that footage to fall back on if an issue arises. Transparency to the public, Citizens Advisory Board, Sheriff Helms implemented that. I think that's a great program. I'd like to continue that, as well as weekly radio shows locally. I believe we talked, Tony and I had talked about that, and keeping the people apprised of what the Sheriff's Office is doing and what's going on. Another big thing is now our radios, since we went to most, when the public can't hear what we're doing, they can't pick up on those radio frequencies and hear what's going on, and I'd like to try to rectify that and save the county some money too, because I think they're going to go to sponsorships on those radio frequencies here before long, is what I was told.
Greg Sellers, what steps would you take to ensure ethical conduct within the Sheriff's Department and transparency to the residents of Camden County?
Well, having an ethical sheriff's department is probably the most important thing you can have, and having a sheriff's department that is responsible to its citizens is probably first and foremost. You do that by, like some of the guys said, like Jimmy said, the body cams, make sure they're on, make sure they're used properly. And be transparent if there's a problem. Again, I'm a big advocate of a citizens advisory board. They certainly have their place if there's a disciplinary problem. While you bring that in front of them, and then the sheriff and his staff makes the decision from there. But a very, very important thing is to have an ethical sheriff's department.
Question number 4. I'm going to start with Chris Edgar. It's been a long process, and a theme that I believe has come out in this election for sheriff has been the use of human and capital resources. Simply, do we have too many people in offices and not on the street? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and and how many departments and how many cars does the department have?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we need. If I am elected, one of the things I will look at is, from my background being in business, we're going to go through this budget. Yes, there is some positions that I don't feel that you need a captain over in court security. That could be ran by a sergeant. Same way with vehicles, and that's part of my plan, is to implement a pay scale without raising any taxes, is court security does not need vehicles. I mean, why? The only people that should have vehicles are the deputies that could be responding to calls. We could utilize that money in taking care of the employees. We have to take care of the employees. They are the priority. Thank you.
Jeff Beecham. Do we have too many people in the offices and not enough officers on the road? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and does the department have too many cars?
You know, when you look at the administrative staff versus the road staff, you've got to look where you know your priority is, and your priority is with the people that's out here that you're serving. And you know, you do. There are necessary administrative staff members right now, and I'm sure that there is some that are not needed within the office. So what I plan on doing is operating on a minimal administrative staff and, you know, beefing up the road so that we can have coverage throughout the whole county consistently, and we have good response times. As far as too many vehicles, from what I hear, they do have too many vehicles, and, you know, that's just something you got to come in, do your audit, and find out where the vehicles are and give them to the, you know, the people that are going to be responding to the calls. Your deputies are the ones that need to take home cars, and your administrative staff that's going to be responding on emergency situations, and not your people that don't respond to calls.
Brian Butts. Do we have too many people in offices and not enough officers on the road? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and does the department have too many cars?
The number of cars is something that an audit will disclose. That has to be something very early in a new administration. As far as and I know we're also implementing a new program with leasing vehicles, so that may take a couple of years to shake out to figure out what works best. Recently on your morning program, somebody dropped a figure that 1 in 4 people at the sheriff's office is an administrator. There is no industry on the face of the planet where that's a desirable ratio. If that's true, that is way too many administrators. Take-home cars, the road deputies need a take-home car because they can be called literally at any moment on a hot call, and instead of having to get dressed, drive to the station, hop in a car, and then go to where they are at or where the call's at, they literally can walk out of their house and be on duty the second they get in their car.
Thank you, sir. Phil Cannon, same question. Do we have too many people in offices and not enough officers on the road? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and does the department have too many cars?
Tony, as far as the administration is concerned, I'm not sure about the 1 in 4 statistic, but definitely need more people out on the streets where we can have the coverage, especially implementing that zone office in Climax Springs where there'll be 24/7 coverage in the northwest area of the county, and trying to get people back into Stoutland, Richland, Max Creek, and Horseshoe Bend where ties have been severed and we've lost money out there. I'd like to try to fix that. As far as cars, administrative cars, I don't understand why we have big pickup trucks, gas guzzling vehicles in administration, where we could have, you know, smaller, more fuel efficient vehicles for the ones that need take home cars, and the rest of them go to the road deputies. As sheriff, I learned from Sheriff John Page to drive your own car and give the car that the county would supply for the sheriff to somebody that needs it.
Thank you, sir. Greg Sellers. Do we have too many people in offices and not enough officers on the road? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and does the department have too many vehicles?
I'm sure there's some vehicles there that could be used for better purposes. As far as having too many vehicles, or who needs vehicles? Anyone that's subject to call out needs a take-home car. That's part of their perks. That's part of them being able to do their job. But anybody that's subject to call out needs a take-home car. As far as too much staff, the sheriff's department is a big organization. It takes a lot of people to run it. Is there some staff that could be better suited out on the road taking calls? Maybe, but you just have to get in there and see what's the best way to run things.
Thank you. Jimmy Brashear, do we have too many people in offices, not enough officers on the road? Who gets a take-home vehicle, and does the department have too many cars?
So to address the issue with the officers on how many's in the office, at the sheriff's office we have slated for 136 deputies or employees, 136 employees, and in the office you have a operations captain and an operations lieutenant, and then we have a lieutenant on Horseshoe Bend that handles the Horseshoe Bend area, and then in corrections we have a captain and a lieutenant. Basically, and that's your command staff in the sheriff's office, other than the chief deputy and the sheriff. And having over a $13 million budget, your command staff spending most of their time is managing the department and the budget of that department. When it comes to cars, we just went to Enterprise. We have a lot of excess of vehicles that we're trying to get rid of and trying to get the biggest bang for the buck that we can bring back to the county. And then for deputies that has patrol cars, take-home cars, any of the police officers or deputies, sheriffs that's on the road that's going to be subject to call-out needs to have a take-home car.
Thank you, sir.
Final question, we'll start with Jeff Beecham. What are your core values, and how do they align with the duties of sheriff?
My core values is integrity and doing the right things at the right times. And the right times is all the times. What we do is a tough job. And, we get frustrated at times out here, but you need to be able to take a breath and do the right things. As far as aligning with the sheriff's department, that's what we need to do, is we need to step back in and we need to start doing the right things for the right reasons at the right times. And we need to take care of the people out here. We need to take care of our people within the sheriff's department so that we will have a culture within the sheriff's department that we have people coming and wanting to come to work for the sheriff's department. So it would be nice to tell people when they come to the door that, sorry, we don't have any openings.
Brian Butts, what are your core values, and how do they align with the duties of the sheriff?
Character and caring for those who you serve. Integrity is big with me. Basically doing the right thing, even if no one's watching, or you're not going to get any credit, or no one will ever even know you did it. That's not why you do the right thing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. Transparency is big. Anyone on Facebook, for example, knows that I'm an open door. I don't really have much of a filter. I tell people what I'm thinking, and sometimes they don't like it, but I don't sugarcoat stuff. And honesty kind of falls in the same thing. I tell it like it is, and I think those are important for any law enforcement agency. One, because if you want your people to trust you, you have to display all those characteristics. If you want to be a leader, that's what it takes. And if you don't have those, you're not going to be effective.
Phil Cannon, what are your core values, and how do they align with the duties of a sheriff?
Well, Luke, as is printed on my trifold, the pillars of my platform is honesty, integrity, transparency, and service to the community. Ethics, number one. Transparency, it all falls in place, and that's what makes a good sheriff. And leading by example, that's what has to happen. When you lead by example and everybody else falls in line, you've got a good working department.
Greg Sellers, what are your core values, and how do they align with the duties of a sheriff?
Integrity, honesty, leadership, being transparent is all attributes that you'd want to see in any law enforcement officer, especially a sheriff. But being ethical is, when nobody's looking, that's probably the most important.
Jimmy Brashear, what are your core values and how do they align with the duties of a sheriff?
I think for any sheriff or any officer, I think our main values is our Christian beliefs and putting our faith in God, and showing compassion to our employees and to our public, being open with everybody, and just going by the golden rule with everything.
And finally, Chris Edgar, what are your core values and how do they align with the duties of the sheriff?
First and foremost, my Christian values, and I would say trustworthiness, honor, and integrity. And here's a challenge I will tell everyone. Try to dig into me. Try to see if I've ever wavered on my integrity. I challenge you, dig. I would challenge you to dig on everyone up here. I think you would be surprised what you find. Thank you.
Each candidate will now get a 2-minute closing statement. We will start with Brian Butts.
Thank you, guys. I'm actually not going to give a closing statement, but rather ask something of everyone here tonight and everyone watching, listening, and that is to go back and rewatch the debate, go back and rewatch this forum, and remember back to any time you've seen all of us speaking, and pay attention to the answers that we gave to questions. Not so much what we said, but how we answered the question. Did we answer the question from knowledge and experience with conviction, or did we read it off of a notebook or give a robotic, rehearsed response? And then I want you to imagine each of us sitting across the desk from a federal agent and determine which one of us do you think would be the most willing and the most effective at telling that federal agent that the only authority they have to operate in Camden County is the authority I give them. Or maybe it's not a federal agent. Maybe it's a news reporter asking for the names and addresses of every concealed carry holder in the county. Which one of us do you think would handle that situation the best? Or a powerful community member who's trying to throw their weight around for a favor to not get you to investigate his buddy. The sad thing is, none of those are fear-mongering. None of those are, it can never happen here situations. Every single one of those has happened recently to sheriffs here and in the state of Missouri. We cannot go forward with a sheriff who bends to outside influences. The people of this county and the values of this county and the Constitution and the laws are the only thing that should drive the actions of our sheriff. Thanks, guys.
Jeff Beecham, 2 minutes.
I've been in law enforcement for 35 years, and with my experience that I've gained through the 35 years, I've done a little bit of everything that you could think of within the area as far as, police work. Then I stepped into the administrative part of it. I am the only candidate that has the administrative as many years as administrative duties as I have been assigned to, and that I have actually worked. There's been a lot of things I've handled throughout the whole my whole career. I look back, and there were times that I thought, is this really what I want to be doing? And then I would think, yes, it is what I want to be doing. That's why I've got into this. And, I had continuous years of law enforcement. Some of the candidates up here, broke away from law enforcement, for whatever reasons they did. But I stuck with it throughout the years. I have the experience. I am a leader. I've led a department. I continue to lead a department. And when it comes to the Sheriff's Department, I want to lead the department in the direction that's going to be the best for the people, and that's best for the employees, and have a department that the people can trust and that they respect, and make it one of the best departments in the state of Missouri.
Chris Edgar, 2-minute closing.
So to finish up with my opening, so after I left business and started into law enforcement, I started at the Camden Police Department. I started working the night shift, worked my way up. I've worked SRO, investigations, major case squad, sexual assault response team, child crimes. I ended up taking a position at the Camden County Prosecutor's Office as Chief of Operations and Chief of Investigations. That's where I overseen all your basic law enforcement agencies. It gave me a vast array, so I'm the only candidate that has an understanding of how the courts work to how within law enforcement, how we all work together. It was very eye-opening. From there, Ferguson happened. I got a phone call to go to the high school, or not the high school, but Lake Huron Technical Center to teach high school kids. I thought that was the best way I could make an impact. I still stayed within law enforcement working, but I was also an instructor, a state instructor, training police officers, and I'm an adjunct professor with Missouri State University and Missouri State University West Plains. So I think that opens a vast array of experience, not from the business world, managing very large budgets, to throughout law enforcement. I can tell you, I'm younger. I'm in my mid-40s. It clearly shows I'm not taking the position for money, and I'm not taking it just for a retirement. I'm taking it to serve as your sheriff as long as you will allow me. Thank you.
Jimmy Bashir, 2 minutes.
All right. So with 30 years at the sheriff's office, I've worked every facet of law enforcement. And within the sheriff's office, I've managed the jail for over 8 years, which is one of the biggest liabilities for a sheriff. I've been the chief deputy for 8 years, managing the budgets and coming up with the budgets from year to year, managing all the divisions within the department. And come January 1st, if you put me as your sheriff, I can hit the ground running, compared to the other candidates where they have to have on-the-job training for at least a year to get up to the standards where they should be. I've taught for the Missouri Sheriff's Training Academy for over 25 years. I'm the site coordinator for the Missouri Sheriffs, and I've always strived myself on training and to push that on to the other deputies. One thing that I would ask you to do is do a deep search into each one of these candidates and me, and look and see what they've done through their career, how many years that they've worked the road, and how many years that they've been a reserve officer. I would look and see if they ever held any rank of corporal or above, and what type of experience they have as managing a patrol division. And if you want a sheriff that can take this job day one and run with it, put Jimmy Bashir on the ballot and just circle that name. Thank you.
Greg Sellers, 2-minute closing.
During my 20 years of full-time law enforcement experience, all of it but just a little over one was with the Sheriff's Department. I started out as a dispatcher for a little while, then I went to the jail, then I went to the road as a road officer. I spent about 5 years on the road as a road deputy. Then I was assigned to a narcotics unit and I worked undercover. I did covert and overt narcotics investigations for several years, 7 or 8 years. Then I went back to the Sheriff's Department. I was put in charge of the Detective Division and a Street Crimes Unit. I did that until 2009 when I left, and then again I started my business. But then I went to work. I decided I really wanted to help the Sheriff's Department. I seen things that needed to be changed, things that needed to be improved upon. I wanted a Sheriff's Department that the citizens of Camden County could believe in and trust in, so I decided to run for sheriff. So I took a job again as the police chief in Richland, where I gained more experience, and then I left there to run for sheriff. Again, full-time law enforcement experience. is what you want for a sheriff. I've got that. I've got the leadership skills to be a good sheriff. I'll make you a good sheriff. Vote for me with confidence on August 6th. Thank you.
Phil Cannon, 2-minute closing statement.
I started with the Sheriff's Office in 1993 as a patrol deputy. I got my start in law enforcement with the Camden Police Department as a reserve officer doing patrol. While I started that, I was living in the fire station of Camden as a Camden volunteer fireman. So hard work ethics is something I'm not afraid of. Being awake 22 hours a day, sleeping for 2, and then going back to work, I did that back in the 90s. And I intend to keep that, not being awake 22 hours a day, but the ethic of hard work as a sheriff, leading the department and bringing it progressively forwards into 2025 is what I'm looking forward to, being elected sheriff. I did a short stint over in Horseshoe Bend as the Director of Security for the Four Seasons POA. We had a $500,000 budget. Within that 6 months' time, I saved enough money in that budget to buy everybody in the department new uniforms, new handheld radios, and dispatch radios, in addition to keeping our vehicles serviced and running. And our service operation, we had 24-hour dispatch, 24-hour road officers patrolling, armed security patrol officers, as well as a swing shift, working 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So leadership and being able to function and run with a budget, even though this budget's much larger than that $500,000 that I had back in 1999, having those skills, I think, is important. Again, transparency, keeping the community involved in what we're involved with, and keeping our deputies out on patrol, keeping them happy, and giving them extra perks within the job, listening to their needs and their wants, as well as getting the department service and getting the taxpayer serviced and providing the best law enforcement that we can is my goal. So August 6th, Cannon for Camden, I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
You're watching and listening to the Candidate Forum on KRMS Radio and TV. Next, our candidates for governor.